Today, I'm going to brainstorm some story ideas for my new project, Writing Journey 2.0. Now, as you might know, I decided to reboot my writing career, to start everything from scratch, and to take you along the journey with me. So, in today's episode, I'm going to start with brainstorming those story ideas or those elements that I want to possibly include in my story. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm referring to this project, go check out the video that I've linked in the description down below where I explain it in a little bit more detail. So basically, what I'm going to do today is I am going to just give a quick overview of what brainstorming actually is and go through two methods that I like to use when I'm brainstorming story elements. So what I've got for you is I've got this template, which I've linked down below, that you can download for free, where there is space for you to brainstorm your own story elements. Once I've gone through the methods that I like to use, what I'll also be doing is I will set a timer and I will actually brainstorm the elements on camera. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, so brainstorming should be a fun and creative exploration of your unique perspective and imagination. And brainstorming does not have to take hours for you to get good ideas. Just because it takes a couple of minutes doesn't mean the ideas are bad. Good story ideas are also relative. It's much more about how you execute or interpret the ideas than what the ideas actually are. Also, you don't have to use brainstorming only for your story premise. Brainstorming ideas can be used at any part of your writing process. And if you're anything like me, this one was a key for me because I thought in the past that brainstorming is relegated to the start of the journey, right? You do all your brainstorming and all your brain dumping, and then you start drafting, and then you just steamroll ahead. Right? But sometimes you need to pause and go back to the brainstorming, and that's perfectly okay. What I'm going to do today is I'm just going to brain dump basically a whole bunch of ideas, whether they are plot related, character related, setting related. I'm not going to organize anything yet. I'm just going to see how far down in the detail I can take them without getting lost in the rabbit hole of brainstorming. I'm just going to do enough to get me started, because in the next couple of weeks, I will take the ideas that I come up with today and I will see how they fit into those elements. And then from there, I will break them down into a structure. When we go into the plot structure, I will plan out my characters, and then I'm going to weave everything together in a plot weaving episode as well. And that is the point where I will see if I have enough detail to actually build the story. And if not, I will come back to these methods that I will discuss and do today and fill in all the gaps that I have identified. So let's get to the methods. All right, so the first method that I want to talk to you about is free writing. It allows you to fill the space of a preset time frame with whatever you can come up with within the confines of that kernel idea. All right, so basically you set a timer for however long you want, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. Then you write down everything that you can come up with that initial kernel in mind. So I'm just going to share a quick example of free writing, which I included in the template so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. In the example of the free writing, I gave myself 1 minute and the genre was fantasy. That initial kernel was fantasy. And in that 1 minute, I came up with a bunch of ideas. It's very broad, but that's the point. You can take any of these things and drill down on them or go into more detail. Give yourself a little bit more time. Take one of them and say, okay, maybe I like the idea of portals, right? So what if we just think of all the things that we can include that has something to do with portals? After you've done your free writing session, it's always a good idea to go through the list of things that came to mind and mark all the things that you want to explore further or that you find interesting or exciting. The reason for that is because not everything on this list that you come up with in your free writing session will actually end up in your story, because sometimes the ideas that are floating in your head aren't right for the story that you want to write at this moment. So you mark the things that you think are a good fit for your story, even though they are not fully fleshed out yet or you don't have a lot of detail on it. That's fine. And then when that is done, then you go to the next method, the what if. This method is where you take all the things that you've marked in your free writing session and you ask yourself, what if? Now, you can combine multiple ideas together with the what if technique, but you can also expand on them or expand on singular ideas. So the thing with the what if technique is it might be that the ideas from your free writing session, they aren't connected into a cohesive idea yet. So you might say, okay, I want to have a portal fantasy, but I like the idea of geometrical magical tattoos, right? Those two ideas on their own are still quite separate. They're not connected. So as you will see in this example, what if we drill down on them a little bit? What if you can only use the portal if you have the right geometrical magical tattoo that unlocks it? So here, what I did was I took two separate ideas from my initial free writing session and I combined them to ask a question that would potentially give me a more detailed idea that I can work with. I can go deeper. What if the tattoos are genetically determined or like a birthmark and only certain bloodlines or species can use them? The great thing about the what if technique is there's no limits. You can go as deep as you want down into your ideas or your kernels until you have as much detail as you want for your story or for the different elements of your story. And as I said, you can take it one element at a time, you can combine elements, it's completely up to you. But this is so much fun. I enjoy this so much. And sometimes it's easy and you have a lot of inspiration to pull from, and sometimes you have nothing. And the what if technique really helps you if you're struggling to get good ideas for the different elements. So the last thing I quickly just want to mention before I start is you just have to remember that it's your story, right? So the best thing that you can do for your ideas, be true to yourself, the person that you are, the place in your life where you're at, because that infuses any of your ideas with a unique factor, because you are the unique factor. So you can ask yourself, is there something in my life or environment, background, my upbringing, all the relationships that I have that I can incorporate into my ideas to create that connection so that it is unique? So this is something that most of the time will come kind of instinctively or organically, because just the nature of the ideas that you come up with is who you are. We can have the exact same kernel idea, but once you go through the free writing part and you go into the what if method, then your ideas will more often than not already be different from mine, because your interpretation and your execution is different than mine. But this is just something to keep in mind. You don't have to worry about getting unique ideas or new ideas. It's about the execution. So just keep that in mind as you go through the brainstorming for the elements of your own story. All right, now is the time that I'm going to set a timer, and I'm going to set a timer just for 10 minutes. And I'm going to do some free writing on my initial kernel idea. This is everything that I can think of that will fit into that initial kernel idea. So it's things that I like in that genre. It's things that I've seen on other shows or movies or in other books that I find intriguing or interesting or that I like. It's tropes that I enjoy. It's anything that I can think of that will be exciting for me to write about. So because I plan to write a fantasy, and more specifically, I plan to write an epic fantasy, that is going to be my initial kernel. All right. So that was 10 minutes. And I mean, to be honest, there's a couple of these things that I'm not really that excited about. But yeah, all right. So from here, remember I said that we would want to mark all the things that we are excited about or that we do want to explore further. So I'm going to quickly do that now. And then I'm going to just take either one or a couple of them and go through the what if method. Once again, I'm going to set a timer and we're going to listen to some music and just get some deeper ideas going for the story. All right. Don't worry too much if you can follow along with everything that I've written down, but if you can see, it's still fine, right? Because these ideas are general enough that you're not going to ruin my story if you see them. All right, so I'm just going to go down the list and mark all the things that I maybe would like to explore further. All right, so I have some ideas that I want to explore further. This doesn't mean that every single thing that I've circled here is going to end up in the story either. It's just a little bit of a focus for going into the next part. So now we want to do the what if method for one or more of these. All right. So here, I'm not going to go through all the things that I've circled because otherwise we're going to be here the whole day. But I am going to see if I can take maybe one or two of those ideas and expand on them a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to take the interference from the gods. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself what if questions related to this kernel idea. And that's the whole process. Now, I can take this kernel idea and connect it to one of the other ones that I've circled to combine them together in a what if statement. And from that what if statement, I can drill down on the details. So let's get to it. Now, what I would suggest you do, and also what I will be doing off camera, is I am going to go through this and do the what if exercise for each of the ones that I've circled, not just that single one. And I'm going to try and come up with as many detailed ideas that I can possibly work with. Why I would like to do that is because in next week's episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of those what if statements that I have developed for each of the ones that I've circled in the free writing session, and I'm going to see where do they fit, or do they actually fit? Is it something that I can take and infuse into my story and make something cohesive? So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to go into the key elements of story, which is conflict, character, plot, and setting. And I'm going to take each of them and work through the guides that I've created for each, which I will also give to you for free so you can download it and use it as well. And I'm going to take those ideas and see if I can come up with the conflict that I want to use in my story, the characters that I want to use, the plot, and the setting as well. And then when I've done that, then I'm going to build a structure for the story. So once I have an idea of what I want to happen in the main story, what I want to happen in the subplots and the character arcs and so on, then what we're going to do is we're going to weave it all together to make one cohesive story. So I really hope that you will stick around for the next couple of weeks, because this is going to be very exciting and I'm looking forward to it so much. So that's it for today's episode, and I hope you liked it. And please let me know in the comments below if you like this format of episode, because this is obviously something new to me. So I also just want to see if it's something that you enjoy. But before I go, I just wanted to remind you that you can get this brainstorming your story ideas template down in the description below, and I have also linked the playlist for the 4 key elements if you want to go check that out to have an idea what will be coming up in the weeks ahead. So that's it for today's episode. Until next time, may your creativity flow freely and your fingers dance upon the keys. Keep writing with joy and stay connected. Cheers.